then man will realize that they cannot eat money. And I think it starts corely at the earth that we're living in. I live in the South Bronx, which has the highest asthma rate, obesity rate, diabetes rate. I mean, I live in the armpit of New York where garbage sits for 5-6 days. I think the discourse has to happen between those who are living in environments where environmental racism is happening, where they're putting up grids and power sources that are giving people, you know, tumors and brain cancer. You know, we have to open up the discussion that 25% of the world's pollution comes from America. This one country and this hemisphere creates to a quarter of the world's pollution. I mean, we live in societies where we should have organic food and produce, but yet kids that live in certain communities are going to be getting blue number 4, yellow number 6, sodium dextrose, and all these, you know, sugars that are not supposed to be put in their body, diagnosed to drugs, and then, you know, they're on Ritalin or ADD or some form of sedative, you know. And like you said about your father being an immigrant, you know, we kind of tend as Americans now to forget that the Mexicans and Guatemalans and El Salvadorians and Jamaicans and Haitians that come to America had the same vision that people did when they're coming to Ellis Island. But now people want to put fences up to electrocute. You know, I think America needs to really realize who we are and what we represent.
Well, that you're right. That actually really offends me when people talk about the immigrant problem. Because the truth is, we are all immigrants in this country. Unless you're Native American of pure blood with no white in you, you are an immigrant in this country. That's right. And so it's just this racism comes from what? It comes from a collapsing economy. Because America was a burgeoning economy. We're an expanding, growing economy for the 200 plus years. You could say actually probably more. From let's say the 17th century up through about 2000. We were really expanding, growing economy, able to put these people to work, utilizing the immigrant spirit. And now what do? We tell them, we don't want you here. Oh, you're going to take our jobs and whatnot. What are you talking about? We exported our jobs. Why are you going to blame the immigrants who are coming here looking for work? We were the ones exporting jobs.
100,000 jobs a month.
Part of America's constant denigration of immigrants.
It's racism is what it is.
But that's part of our history. It's like the Irish need not apply, you know. It's all, everyone who comes here.
Yeah, and people should know too, obviously the Irish were also,
but in the end, they assimilate and
racism is
over,
also,
so it doesn't really matter.
Racism is not about color, frankly, because the British were very racist against the Irish.
The Dutch hated the British hate the Irish hate the, you know.
Yeah, it's not a color thing.
Human problem.
But we, you know, without papers, I mean, it's just continuous.
You know? I mean, it is to an extent, but if you look at, you know, someone earlier said the military-industrial complex, but people soon to forget the prison-industrial complex. When brothers in our community from 18 to 26 or 30 are doing time before they go to college. Bloomberg elected himself for a 3rd term without anybody voting for him. The communities we live in, police have taken life of Sean Bell, Oscar Grant. I mean, the brother that was a basketball player at Pace University. I mean, these kind of things that are happening in our society when cops can gun down a young black man on YouTube, not go to prison for it, it sends a message to our community.
And people watch it as entertainment.
Right?
Isn't that the point? That people are more entertained by it than appalled.
But if you're living in a city with a ghetto or near the city, you're living with those people. But we've found ways to put freeways and isolate ourselves from core groups, like people that live in reservations, people that live in trailer parks. It doesn't have to be a color thing. It's the people who make the least are being shunned and then put into prison. And so now this capitalist society has fallen and it's turned into a fascist society.
You realize it's illegal for you to drink before the age of 21, but it's okay for you to go in the army at the age of 17.
And you would be tried as an adult and potentially sentenced to death at like 16, 17.
Exactly.
16, 17.
Younger than that, too.
So lower the drinking age then.
So
lower the drinking age.
So we as people on this planet
Used to be 18.
Yeah.
we as people on this planet is more than race. It's more than religion. It's more about human survival right now. What's going on? Because they're saying the world is getting overpopulated. They're saying the world is getting overpopulated, and
there's no such thing as overpopulation.
no, it's not. It's a lie.
Those are also propaganda tactics,
whole bunch of lies.
scare tactics.
Because the Earth is a living being. It automatically knows the majority of people on the planet, and it would create land for people on the planet if it's getting overpopulated.
They say that everyone on the planet today could fit in Texas. So I guess we got a way to go for filling it up.
Well, Africa is quite depopulated or underpopulated.
But what their main goal is basically about, they have a plan. They want to reach mass genocide. They want to get rid of like probably 5 billion people off the planet.
Right.
And all of this was going on. All of the banking, all of the market collapse, all of the wars. All
I think
this
it could be
parts
environmentalism also has that.
Everything play parts in it.
I mean, yeah, if they're clearing so much land in Brazil, cutting so many trees down so cattle can graze on them to be slaughtered for McDonald's, or they can grow corn for biodiesel fuel, when these trees are already there, then that's a backwards. There's no species on this planet that destroys its environment.
Yeah, you see,
bears don't.
You're hitting upon the insanity of the structure.
It's not. It's like it's a psychosis.
And see, what I was trying to get at the beginning was this idea that the reason that they'll tell you we cannot invest in long-term future of our people, we cannot invest in infrastructure, we cannot invest in space program, is because we have a budget deficit of some potentially $20 trillion, right? And they're trying to, of course, slash at least $7 trillion. But here's the problem: money itself is not value. What is the dollar itself is not the real value. What is value is what you're using it towards. So, for example, if our system was working effectively, what you would do is you'd issue bonds from our from our treasury or a national bank.
The government creates a
out of the
government
government,
bank.
issuing, basically creating credit through a currency that then people can invest in over long-term periods. You're talking 10, 20, 30-year investments, and that has a certain bond rate of return, and then you're basically generating something that has value over future periods of time.
But what you do with that bond?
Because the whole point is, I'm telling you about value. Think about value.
That's
for a second.
that's what you're saying.
Think about value, what you recreate, because the point is you're creating a railroad not just for the railroad's value, but for the value of what you're going to transport along that railroad. You're investing in people's health care, not because it's about the money of how much you're investing, because that person is a productive individual and they have a right to live and they can work and they can then create more.
Correct, but
that's value.
It is, but what you also do when the government issues those bonds, the private sector then bids on those bonds, and it puts the people to work in developing their own infrastructure and pays them. That's a credit-based system.
I'm saying beyond the putting people to work
Correct.
concept. I'm saying beyond that, it's regenerative, it's reproductive.
You're talking about, for instance, like an interest-free...
No. There's interest. It bears interest, you see. Everything bears interest because that's the nature of investment. No one invests without bearing interest. My point is simply...
a currency that's not based on, for instance, fractional reserve lending, which I see as a core problem here, is that we have a monetary system that is... The Federal Reserve is a private company. It's a for-profit company.
The Federal Reserve System virtually controls the nation's monetary system. Yet it is accountable to no one. It has no budget, it is subject to no audit, and no congressional committee knows of or can truly supervise its operations.
And this is a huge issue that's been going, many presidents, Madison, Lincoln, Thomas Jefferson, the power to issue currency has gone back and forth between a private company and the United States many times. And now people don't even talk about it because the same companies own the media, and
the Constitution of the United States.
I see that's what the problem here is, that as human beings we have created essentially these spiritual leviathans called corporations, which we all feed into. They're almost like entities which are feeding off of us, but we've created them. Well, the privatization of prisons, the privatization of water.
You're talking about debt slavery, though. It's manufactured debt slavery. And
how do we
believe that debt slavery if we stay in a currency-based society?
Correct.
If we keep trading and putting ourselves in debt. I mean, back then when in the 20s or the 10s, you bought with money. You went to a store, they said no cash, no check, no nothing. You bought no credit, no check, just money.
It was coin, gold, and silver back then.
But my point is that when we transferred to this point that we could start swiping cards and writing false statements and giving them away, we created a debt-based society. So now we're in debt.
But our currency then was also backed by a commodity, by gold.
It's not backed by gold.
But it's not backed
now.
It was.
It was up until 1971.
Well, maybe it is backed by gold.
Correct.
That's why it's worthless.
So what's the point?
My point being that now that it's not valued by something that has an intrinsic value, like you're saying.
But it has no intrinsic value. You see, what I'm trying to get at is something is even beyond it.
What we agree on.
You see,
it's what we agree on that it has.
I understand.
You see, the point is, fiat currency against gold or against emeralds, it doesn't really matter. The whole point is what has the value.
Sort of,
when you start
don't you think? Well, the wealth of a nation. I mean, our wealth. What we